Hey there, wizards. How's it going? You missed the episodes of the Leaky Cauldron, right? I know. This past week, this place looked like a desert. Where are the videos, Kako? Where are the videos? What's going on? My wizards! What happened is that I went to do a campaign in Orlando, and I went to the parks, right? I went to Universal anyway, and I recorded a lot of content, and I had to take care of those deliveries. So it was something that took time, and I couldn't make the videos here for the Leaky Cauldron, precisely because I had to deliver all that on a very tight deadline. But we're back. By the way, I hope the vlog we made at Universal comes out soon. It turned out really great. Today's episode is the continuation of the series about scenes that are better in the movies than in the books, where I pick parts that I thought turned out better, that were cooler in the movie compared to how the scene is in the book. And I have to admit, I had a really hard time with this one, and I'm not trying to make a joke or put down the movie The Half-Blood Prince or anything like that. But compared to the book, man, it was really hard to find scenes that I personally think are better in the movie. So it took me a while to write this script, because as I'm working on it, I'm reading the book and watching the movie at the same time, you know? And man, it was tough. That's why this one will have the fewest better scenes compared to the other books and movies, right? In the other books, I included many cool scenes that I think are better. But with The Half-Blood Prince, maybe because it's my favorite book and has so many things I love, I couldn't bring as much of that into the movie, especially the parts I like most. The first scene I picked happens right at the beginning, where the Death Eaters, after kidnapping Ollivander, end up destroying and attacking the Millennium Bridge, right? And then there's all that chaos, the Muggles running, fleeing, not knowing what happened. And this scene, although it doesn't actually appear in the book, we don't see it happening. There's a mention of it in the conversation between Fudge and the Muggle Prime Minister. In fact, in the book, it's another bridge that collapses, because the Millennium Bridge didn't exist yet. But this scene makes it onto my list, because it shows something that's only mentioned in the book, something we don't actually see happening in the book. So, I think it turned out better. Although, with many reservations. Death Eaters flying, the bridge that wasn't even supposed to be there, because it hadn't been built yet. But we let these things slide. I also particularly like the moment that shows Ollivander being kidnapped by Death Eaters. But it's very different from the book, because in the book it doesn't show it. It's a mystery what happened to Ollivander. The shop isn't destroyed. There's no trace of anything. The shop is just there as if it had been abandoned, right? But it's not destroyed. There's no sign of a fight. Nothing. That's what the movie shows. But personally, I think it's a cool scene, even though it's different. The next scene that comes up here, and purely for visual reasons, is the moment when Dumbledore fixes the Muggles' house where Slughorn is. In the book, it's very similar, but Slughorn and Dumbledore do it together, back to back. And in the movie, it's just Dumbledore who does it. But in the movie, it's slightly more humorous than impressive. In the book, it's very descriptive, right? Things were getting fixed. Obviously, it's a book. It couldn't be any other way. To show what's happening, you have to describe it, right? But in the movie, visually, it conveyed the feeling better than the book did. Another scene that, for me, is much better, it's way better in the movie, is the moment when they go to Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, where the camera zooms in on the storefront, where there's that big puppet. That's from the movie, right? That big puppet of the twins isn't in the book. The vibe of this scene is so Weasley twins, right, man? The soundtrack is really cool. The store is super colorful, really eye-catching. In the book, it's described too, right? The shop windows are really eye-catching and all, but it doesn't show it in such detail. Like, come on, in the movie there's a boy walking on the wall. There's that little Amber Umbridge bike there, right? Saying she hates kids. That's not in the book. So, for me, this scene ends up being better. This moment of showing the store. Not what happens inside the store, but the way the store is presented, yes. Like Fred and George there, right? Talking, advertising their products. That's really cool in the movie. You'll see that the scenes are very, very spaced out. Like, really spaced out. Because, man, like I said, it was hard for me to separate them. Actually, man, while I was rereading The Half-Blood Prince, to write this script and watch the movie at the same time, it becomes clear, wow, how much they changed things in The Half-Blood Prince. But the problem isn't just cutting things, because it's natural, right? In an adaptation, things really do get cut, but they change things around so much. The pacing of the movie itself. A lot of events happen out of order from the book, you know?
In the book, things happen in a certain order, and in the movie, it happens differently. Anyway, The Half-Blood Prince is a good movie if you watch it without considering the book.
But every time we try to compare, it gets difficult. This next scene takes place at Hogwarts, when they're there at the feast, and Dumbledore gives a speech.
In this speech, this is the part I picked as the best. It's because Dumbledore has a different line, right?
When he tells the students that, in the end, the greatest weapon of the forces of darkness is the very people who are there, and the camera focuses on Draco, like this. That part in the movie is really good. It turned out this speech turned out much better in the movie because of that. Because Dumbledore says it right there, you know? He also says that mainly that Voldemort was once just an ordinary student.
Right? Ordinary. He was a student. He already sat at that table. He already walked through those hallways. In the book, he doesn't say that. He just talks, right? About Voldemort's return. About the attacks. What was happening. He doesn't say that Voldemort was already there. That he was a student.
And I think that makes it a little heavier, because we have especially the students there.
There's this idea like, wow, Voldemort, right? But come on, he was already there. He was a student, you know? So the danger can come from there, and the students who are there can be used as weapons. That's really cool. The next scene I picked here for our list, which I think is better in the movie, and this one is much, much better. It's when Harry and Ron go to the potions classroom to take the class, right? They were there enjoying their free time, you know? Having fun, and the teacher tells Harry and Ron to go to the potions class, right? So Harry goes. But they don't have the materials yet. So Slughorn says they could borrow books from the cupboard. In the movie, there's a newer book and an old worn-out one. And Harry and Ron get into a little competition there, trying to get the better book. And Harry loses, because Ron is much bigger than him. Much stronger, right? And then Harry hits his book against Ron's book. I think that's really cool in the movie, because it shows a bit of their essence. Because after all, they're still teenagers. Deep down, they're just kids, you know? So it's expected that they'll do silly things like that. And there's a lot of responsibility on Harry's shoulders, especially in this situation, right? With the confirmation that Voldemort is back, him being the chosen one and all.
So these moments of light relaxation where they're just being teenagers are really nice.
In the book, it's Slughorn who grabs 2 old books and gives them to them. So it's pretty dull compared to how it is in the movie.
Now, this scene here also goes on my list of best moments, simply because of the details. It's just the details.
It happens in a similar way in both the book and the movie.
But in the movie, there's a little detail that makes it better for me. It's the scene where Kate Abel is cursed by the opal necklace. When they're coming back from Hogsmeade, in that scene, in the book, Kate Abel screams, right? She stands up, like floats, screams, like lets out a terrifying scream, and then she falls to the ground and kind of starts convulsing. In the movie, there's that thing where she's dragged from side to side. It really reminded me of a horror movie vibe, you know? Like a possession vibe, you know? So, for me, this detail makes the scene better and scarier in the movie than in the book. The way she's there with her mouth open, her eyes wide open in the movie, this scene is really cool. And another scene that happens right after this event, which, for me, was better in the movie. It's simply a question every fan asks themselves. Why is it that every time something happens at Hogwarts, Harry, Ron, and Hermione are involved? And Minerva asks this in the movie, right? When they show up there and Ron answers, "Believe me, Professor, I've been asking myself that for 5 years," which is since he started at Hogwarts. I love that part. It's a silly little thing. It's a small, silly difference, really. Because in the book, it doesn't actually happen, right? There's a much more serious vibe about the attack. Harry is talking about his suspicions about Draco. Snape actually isn't in that scene, right? In the movie, he makes a remark to Harry there, but in the book, he isn't present. But this moment with Minerva asking, I think it resonated with everyone. Anyone who has watched Harry Potter or consumed Harry Potter in any way. Like, why are they always involved in this? Another moment I picked out here, which I think is really, really good, is the Quidditch match. The only match that's shown, right? Unfortunately, in the movie Half-Blood Prince, man,
It's really violent, very intense. The guys are hitting each other, knocking each other down. Ron's saves are spectacular, right? Because he thinks he took Felix Felicis anyway. But it's amazing. And so, this part of being more violent and more intense in the movie is cool. But in the book, the events of the match are better, you know? Gina throws herself after the game. She throws herself towards Zachariah Smith, who was narrating the game and making a lot of insults to the Gryffindor crowd there, you know? Like, questioning Ron's credibility and quality. And Gina's as players. Like, are they only on the team because they're friends with the captain? Anyway, then Gina throws herself after the game in the stands, destroying everything there. That's better in the book. But this scene of the game happening is actually cooler in the movie. In the movie, as incredible as it may seem, what I'm about to say is like, put me in a mental hospital.
But in the movie, it's because, like in Half-Blood Prince, everything about Ron and Lavender just makes me completely, like, angry, you know?
Because, honestly, I don't like the acting of that girl who plays Lavender. She's way too over the top, you know? That moment with the love potion when she's smelling it. She's like, wow, it really gets to me, you know? I think she's way too over the top. Way too over the top. I don't like it. And especially her scenes with Ron, you know, they really annoy me in the movie. A lot. Maybe because David Yates wanted to turn this movie into a teen romance and left out the more important things. Maybe. But what I'll say here is that the scene where she pulls Ron in for a big kiss there in the common room is better than it is in the book. Why is it better than it is in the book? In the book, Harry sees the two of them kissing. Like, wow, he just looks over. The two of them are making out there, and that's it.
In the movie, it's like she goes and pulls him in and gives him a big kiss, just like that. And everyone cheers and everything. So that's why it's better.
Even though I can't stand all the Lavender and Ron interactions in the movie. Now, Slughorn's party. Slughorn's Christmas party. For me, it's better in the movie in several ways. Because in the book, there are some more interesting things, right? There's the conversation with the vampire, right? Introducing Sanguine, and Slughorn introducing a few more people there. But in the movie, for me, there's a moment that, for me, works so much better. So much better. And that's Snape. Snape gives Harry the message. And Harry asks about Dumbledore, right? And Snape just ignores him and walks away. Like, he just ignores what Harry asks. And he looks at him with such a look of contempt and walks away. I love this scene. This scene is amazing, man. It's incredible. Incredible. That's the essence of Snape right there. The way he ignores Harry. Harry asks. He just like turns away. It's such a good scene. So for me, that's why it's better. Although it doesn't have that detail of Snape delivering the message, right? He just goes there and takes Malfoy away. And then, later, Harry listens to the whole conversation about the unbreakable vow, right? But anyway, it's cool. Another moment for me that belongs on this list is when Ron takes the love potion. But not the whole scene. Because in the book, Ron punches Harry in the ear, right? When Harry says, like, come on, you must be joking. You have to be kidding. Ron punches him right in the ear. So, that's cooler in the book. But in the movie, the beginning of the scene where Ron is sitting, hugging the box of chocolates, looking out the window and says, oh, the moon is beautiful, isn't it? For me, it's spectacular, man. It's really funny. Every time, I crack up laughing. No matter how many times I watch it, I laugh at that moment with Ron. And then, after the scene unfolds, right? In the book, Harry takes him to Slughorn. In the book, it's better.
But there's also a moment there that's better in the movie, which is when he hugs Slughorn and calls him Romilda, right?
He says, oh darling, and hugs the professor. Slughorn looks at him with a face like, this potion is really strong. I'd better do something about it. These two moments are better in the movie, but the rest of the scene in the book is still better. In Slughorn's office, when Ron falls over the couch is also better in the movie. In the book, he just trips on the rug. And then he asks, did Romilda see that? And then the professor says, no, she hasn't arrived yet. Here, take this tonic so you'll be more relaxed when she gets here.
In the movie, he falls backward over the couch, right? I think it's more exaggerated and looks cooler. The breakup, right?
The breakup between Delilah Brown and Ron when he's in the infirmary in the movie, because that's from the movie, right? In the book, it doesn't happen like that.
She doesn't even go to the infirmary, and when she does go, Ron pretends to be asleep. But that moment when Ron says Hermione's name, she sees it and runs out. Then Dumbledore is like, "Oh, the disappointments of love." I like that scene. I admit that I like that scene in the movie. For me, their breakup happens better in the movie than in the book. In the book, it happens when Harry takes the Felix Felicis. He's wearing the invisibility cloak, and then Dalila sees Ron with Hermione, right? Because she thinks they're alone. She gets jealous, argues with him, and they break up. Now, this point here, man, for me, it's better in the movie, just the story, okay? When Harry goes to get Slughorn's memory, after taking the Felix Felicis, and Slughorn tells the story about the little fish, Francis, which was given to him by Harry's mother. Man, I think this scene is really beautiful. It's really beautiful when he talks about the little fish and how the fish disappeared.
He says it disappeared on the night Harry's mother died, and it had been a gift from her. Although this detail isn't in the book, I think it was a nice addition in the movie.
But it's really just that story that I think is better in the scene, you know? In the movie. In the book, the way Harry handles it is much stronger, you know?
So I prefer it in the book, but that little fish moment there is nice. Now, moving on to the final moments of the movie, when Harry and Dumbledore apparate on top of that rock in the sea, that scene is spectacular, my friend.
Wow, it's really wonderful. It's really wonderful. The way they're out there, with the waves crashing, that wildness of nature, you know? I think it's amazing. This scene is wonderful. I really like it. In the book, they apparate there too, right? And then what's cool in the book is that they apparate there and they jump into the water and swim to the entrance, right? They can't get there with magic, so they have to swim. That's cool in the book. Also, it describes that Dumbledore didn't even seem to be his age while swimming there and all, in a really rough sea, right? But in the movie, it's really cool too. One thing that I think is better in the movie is the style of the cave, where the Horcrux is hidden. The fact that the cave has those crystal things really gives it a unique feel, you know? A real Voldemort vibe. Like, wow, Voldemort would choose this place because it's a different kind of cave, I admit. I've never seen a cave like that, right? So I think that's cool in the movie. The only thing in the movie that I don't think is better is that they made the potion black and not glowing green, which is even on the book cover, right? I prefer how it is in the book, the potion basin and all. But the structure of the cave itself in the movie is better. At that moment in the cave too, another moment I picked for the list as the best is when Dumbledore is drinking the potion. When he's drinking the potion in the movie, we see for the first time, visually, Dumbledore looking fragile in a way we've never seen before. And I remember that when I watched the movie, it impacted me a lot. Much more than when I read the book, right? Because in the book, while I was reading, I was more tense than scared, you know? No, I wasn't like, wow, Dumbledore can't handle this, or wow, he's weak.
No, I was tense like, wow, Dumbledore's going to drink it, but he'll make it, right? I read the book before the movie came out, so, like, he'll make it. It's Dumbledore. But in the movie, he comes across as much more, you know, like weak, wow, look at this, now we're screwed. That's the feeling the movie gave me, like, now we're screwed.
I already knew Dumbledore would die in the movie since I read the book, so the feeling was different. The scene is cooler and more impactful in the movie, especially when he drinks the potion. Another part that for me is better in the cave is when Dumbledore conjures that giant ring of fire.
My friend, that scene for me is among the best in all the Harry Potter movies, okay?
It easily makes my top 5 best scenes from all the Harry Potter movies, which is Dumbledore conjuring that ring of fire to save Harry from the Inferius that dragged him to the bottom of the lake.
Actually, right, Harry being pulled in can also count as a scene I wrote down here. I see I skipped it. Harry being pulled into the lake is also better, because in the book, that doesn't happen. In the book, they, the Inferi, grab Harry, lift him up, and are about to start dragging him into the lake. In the movie, the corpse already grabs him and pulls him back. Then you think, my friend, he's done for, right? So, in the movie, I think it's better. And then, Dumbledore conjures the ring of fire and opens that path with the spell, right, when he says, Partis Temporis. He opens it like that. And man, that scene is amazing. In the book, he makes the ring of fire and all, but it's described in a way that seems weaker, more subtle than that big ring of fire like it is in the movie, you know? And this ring of fire, It stays around Harry and Dumbledore while they're in the little boat. They leave the little island there, where the basin is, and go to the little boat, right, with the ring surrounding them. The ring of fire surrounding them in the boat, and all the inferi go back into the water.
While in the movie, yeah, it's way better that the ring of fire is around everything, and he opens that path right through the middle of the fire. I think it looks way better.
Another moment that, for me, is also much better in the movie is actually the case of the bridge, right? From the beginning of the video, we know it happens, but we don't see it happening, which is the Death Eaters arriving at Hogwarts, right? In the book, we only see them when they already show up at the tower, when Draco is already there with Dumbledore.
In the movie, we see them coming out of the Vanishing Cabinet. And this scene, my friend, it's amazing. Let's agree, come on.
The cabinet opening and the Death Eaters coming out, you know? Even though Bellatrix isn't in the book at that moment, her scene is really cool. Her coming out, them coming out of the cabinet and all that. Another moment that, for me, was better in the movie is when Draco is there with Dumbledore, right? And Draco shows the dark mark. In the book, that doesn't happen. He doesn't actually show it. And in the book too, and maybe that's because I read it before watching the movie, right? Because when you read, you interpret a lot of what's written there.
And your imagination also takes over, right? Of course, I imagine. When I read it for the first time, I pictured Draco being nervous, right? Wanting to do it, but not being able to. Chickening out.
But in the movie, it gives off a vibe of him being completely desperate, right? Showing the dark mark, crying, saying he had to do it because otherwise he would be killed, right?
And you can see that he's visibly very shaken. So, for me, him showing the mark like that is cooler in the movie.
And last but not least, I said this video would have just a few moments. There are only 22 in total compared to the other videos I made, right? It's not much. The moment when they raise their wands there, with Dumbledore's body lying there on the ground, they raise their wands.
And the light from the wands dissipates the dark mark in the sky. That scene is beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
I know it was done with the intention of replacing Dumbledore's funeral, which for me is a crime not to have that moment in the movie. It's an absurd crime. But that scene is beautiful, man. I'm not comparing it to Dumbledore's funeral in the book. I'm referring to the exact moment in the book when this happens. They don't raise their wands, right? There's no scene of them raising their wands in the book. But this happens at a moment when everyone is gathered around Dumbledore's body, watching Harry leaning over him, hugging him, not wanting to get up from there. So in the book, that's all there is, right? And then Ginny takes Harry away from there. First, Ginny calls him, and he doesn't want to leave. Ginny calls him, and he goes to the hospital wing without understanding where everyone is gathered. So, that moment when Harry is there kneeling on the ground with Dumbledore in the book, and there are people around. For me, in the movie, it was better with them raising their wands and dispelling the dark mark. But, again, this moment in the book is equivalent to the moment when Harry is there, kneeling just in front of Dumbledore's body. Not the funeral itself, right? Because the funeral had to happen. But tell me, what did you think? Do you agree that these scenes are better in the movie? Don't you agree?
Which scenes do you think are better in the movie that I haven't mentioned here? You can also put them below, because this kind of video is really about opinions, right?
These scenes are better from my perspective. Maybe they aren't from yours, and that's okay. And if there's any scene you think is better that I haven't mentioned, feel free to comment as well.
I think this video would be much easier to make if I listed the worst scenes from Half-Blood Prince compared to the book. Then I could make a video that's about 3 hours long.
Actually, that's an idea for a series. What do you think? After finishing the best scenes, what if I do the worst scenes from each movie for each book? Did you like that? So that's it, my wizards. I hope you enjoyed it. We're back. I recorded some really cool videos here. There's some pretty unusual collection videos, which I know you guys like. I made one showing my complete Harry Potter sticker albums. That should be coming out this week. I also recorded a video opening the most expensive Harry Potter item I've ever bought for my collection. And that video is coming out soon too.
I'm going to release them as extra videos on the channel to make up for the lack of videos, since I kind of left you guys hanging this past week.
So there will be these extra videos, alright? And that's it. We're getting back to the normal schedule for this channel. Thanks for watching. Thanks for following along. Comment, leave a like, share, and I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, mischief managed.